March 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board to order, noting that we're doing this entirely virtually with Zoom, like the governor said to, and gave permission, or somebody gave us permission for it. Chris, you want to do the rest of this?
Yeah, so the meeting is being held remotely per the governor's orders. All votes will have to be a roll call vote. We'll do a audio check with all the panelists. For those participating at home as attendees, we will monitor both the chat and the Q&A. So please feel free to use those features as well as the raise hand feature, and you will be recognized by the chairman at the appropriate time to speak, or your comment will be recognized if you use the chat feature Q&A. With that said, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to go through the members?
Yes, please.
So Chairman Robert Hassinger.
I'm here.
Vice Chair David Robbins.
Present.
Clerk Justin Wood.
Present.
Member Linda Hassinger.
Here.
Associate Member Vikram Dave.
Present.
Staff Natalia Allward.
Present. Sorry about that.
And then staff Chris McGoldrick here.
I guess we'll have to establish who we're talking to among the others as we go along. Okay, at this point, we have an opportunity for public input. If someone wants to talk to us about something that's not on our agenda tonight, this would be the time. I don't see anybody. Do you? All right. In that case,
Sorry.
we'll move on.
Paul, were you raising your hand? Paul Chason?
I am. Am I on the agenda or not on the agenda? Is this the time for me to?
Yes, so the agenda, you are on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. Good. So 2A, determination of minor modification, post office pub.
Yep, so this is a determination of minor modification. As you're aware, I'm sure from last year, we did this process to permit temporary outdoor seating in relation to COVID-19 and the regulations in terms of outdoor seating to allow businesses to operate. Those permits or the determinations from last year expired per the conditions of the board last November. This is a request to do largely the same as last year for post office pub outdoor seating. I believe they have represented that there is no tent this year, but we'll be doing outdoor seating. So I can pull up the plans that were provided if you'd like to take a look at them, or if the applicant has anything additional they would like to add.
I've already looked at them.
I do have one question, but it won't affect my vote in particular. It's just more as a general question that I'd like to know is, are you guys going to be doing any outdoor entertainment this season?
I never did any last summer, and I'm not doing it this year either.
Okay, thank you.
If we did, right now it's entertainment. The way I read it is you can play a guitar, but you can't sing. That's the way the governor reads right now. But we're not doing nothing outside. To answer your question, we're not doing no entertainment outside. No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I did have a brief note in terms of, I think something that the board should consider is in terms of extending the permit and how long it's extended to. We have had requests to extend it to December this year. And so in order to remain consistent, if the board would like to extend through November to December 1st. That has been a request this year. So
What was our end date this year or this last year?
it was November,
November 1st last year. We did.
correct, November 1st.
We basically said November 1st or the declaration of emergency is over, whichever comes first. And November 1st, December 1st, given that there's, at least, some prospect of, through the end of November being potentially suitable for outdoors, I wouldn't have any problem with setting December 1st or the end of the emergency as the end date.
I guess you got to figure out exactly when that end is, because we have so many phases and so many rules that go with each one.
Yeah.
But anyway, be that as it may.
Which,
Um,
and so one of the things that's in terms of, we did do the governor's orders and thank you, Vice Chair Robbins, for mentioning that. But we may want to consider this year allowing just the full season and just putting December 1st. That will allow businesses to operate and have the outdoor seating throughout the warm weather. I think just in terms of the outdoor seating, it's been an interesting test case to show that some of that can operate, and that a lot of the kind of concerns maybe did not materialize throughout the operation of the outdoor dining, and it I think would help the businesses to recover a little bit faster as we move through the warm weather.
Yeah, that I have to say that just after I said what I said, the thought did cross my mind that it probably would not hurt anything to just set December 1st as the end date without any being conditioned upon the state of emergency.
I'm in favor of that as well. I can imagine both the end date of the state of emergency being a little bit potentially confusing depending on what phase, and then the other fact that even once it ends, there may very well be potential patrons to these businesses that would want to only go if they were allowed to do it outside and not have to be inside for one reason or another.
Are we
So-
heading towards a outdoors every year pandemic or not? Apparently a fair number of people took advantage of it.
So I would expect that fingers crossed, with the vaccine rollout, that next year we would not be having the temporary permits. If businesses did want to go for making these changes more permanent, then we would do a full modification of the actual site plan, but that would be separate from the temporary permits that we're doing, just in terms of COVID impacts. So.
Yeah. Just as this past time, I just want to be sure that we construct our decision to be very careful about the capacities. Taking away parking lot reduces the number of parking spaces, which reduces the number of seats, and now we have to count the outside seats as well as the inside seats. And there are probably different rules about how many are allowed in the outdoor space than there are indoors. So anyway, that's, that'll come up for each of these for me. Anybody have anything? Do we have a motion?
I would offer the motion to approve I forget exactly what language we used last year, but to find that this is a minor modification, approve the minor modification with conditions as discussed, mainly to set the end date to December 1st. And sort of, at least implicitly, what we did last year was we said that the total capacity indoors plus outdoors must not exceed the available parking, the parking that is available after the outdoor seating area is set up. I don't remember exactly how we worded it, but in essence, we just said that.
I think
you
that's
can't-
I
you
think
can't-
that's the intent.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye,
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
I vote aye.
We
A
did get
mail
Prabhu.
mess- hmm?
We did get Prabhu in.
Yes, Prabhu's here.
Oh, there he is. I just had an email message. All right, Prabhu, did you hear enough of this to vote?
Yes, yes,
Okay, and you vote yes.
yes.
Motion carries. Good luck. Moving on to B, ANR 2021-03 at 21 and 25 Grafton Common.
Excuse me, Bob, I just want to thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Good luck.
You
Yeah,
too.
thank you very much.
ANR 2021-03. We have a plan. Took a little while to figure out exactly what was going on, but I know.
Yeah, so this is this A&R request is a land swap. So this the parcel B here is the existing part of this 25 Grafton Common Inn that will be transferred, and the portion parcel A will be transferred to the Grafton Common John H. McGill, which will encompass, the stairs. There's currently some encroachment, and so it's a land swap to rectify some of the parcel boundaries here. But there's no creation of new lots.
Is there any parking in the portion that's being taken away from the inn and given to number, whatever it is, 21?
I can pull it up on GIS. Sorry, it's taking a little bit to load.
He's bringing up map geo
Oh,
with one of the lots in question, the inn lot.
oh,
So it's hard to tell definitively, but it appears that the parking is not within the limits of the A&R.
Well,
I think it comes right here. There's.
okay, can you zoom down on the area right behind the, I'll call it the bank, the McGill building? There's something there.
Yeah, there's
There.
some spots here.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you zoom down in there?
This is as close as it'll let me. zoom in.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it looks like car there. The reason I asked, and I emailed you, Chris, about this, going back before, I'm pretty sure it's before the permits that are mentioned in the application or the request. There were a couple of permits from the planning board referenced, but I think that there's one further back because I remember us looking at the parking situation and how much parking there was. And I think that there were restrictions way back placed on that permit. And I'm just concerned that we're losing more parking there. So anyway, that's a point to think about, but it's got nothing to do with whether the A&R is appropriate. I'd be the only one who'd remember that.
So,
I said old, what? Yes. You're a troublemaker. I know your type. So, any questions, anythings?
Hey, Chris, the
Mhm.
other view on the map geo, not the aerial view, the other view gives the parking spots. I think it's cutting off about 4 or 5 parking spots.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, okay, I just want, I didn't know if anybody was here.
I don't know what is this view called. I think it's the regular map view. In the map view, you can see that there are a bunch of spots out there.
Yeah, well, I'll take a look at that. JS is not 100% accurate, especially with some of those layers, but I absolutely will take a look and look at the previous permits to see if there's any issues with that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you may have to really go back to find it. What I'm talking about. I know you quite a ways back. I think it was a special permit, but I don't remember why.
So
Okay.
I guess my question on that is, does this concern affect what we can or should do tonight?
What didn't I just say? I don't think that it's going to change about
Okay.
A&R.
I just was double checking.
Yeah, well, for some reason, Google Maps won't give me what I need of the aerial picture. I think I can do that, but not right now. Okay, in any case, does
I
anyone
move that-
have any?
I was gonna make the motion.
Uh-huh.
I move that we find this approval is not required and direct staff to draft the appropriate documentation.
second,
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Did we find, sorry, Bob, can I ask
Oh.
a question?
Yeah.
Did you say that this, when you said that this is not going to cause any material impact to the A&R, that was, I didn't follow that part. So how do we say?
The point is that it raises that question, but the decision on the A&R itself doesn't depend on whether they comply with anything, permits or anything. It's just that since it's coming by, hello, here we are. So we have to decide the A&R based on, the usual criteria of frontage and whatever all. But it does remind us to take a look back and try to go back through the permitting way back and see if there wasn't something back then. I'm curious what it said. There are one or two others we'll get to one of these days. Okay, anything else? Probably, anybody else?
So if you make the decision now, is that conditional that we check back in the
No.
past? No.
Do
So-
not relate it, Bruce.
No. Whether or not their permit is valid now and their parking is valid has nothing to do with the approval not required subdivision plan.
Okay. Okay. I'm good.
Except that it reminds us to think about it. Okay, is there anything else? Is there a motion?
I already gave the motion.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, and I seconded it.
Oh, I didn't hear. No, you didn't. All right. If there's no more discussion, Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carries. Good. That one's moving on. Let's see. Lot release. Highfields. Our friend Joe Antonellis is with us.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, may I address the board? Good evening,
Yes.
everyone. Joseph Antonellis on behalf of McGill Associates, Inc. This is a request to release 6 lots in the Highfield subdivision. As Mr. Hassinger knows, having spent a significant amount of time as this project was approved and been developed, I know he will recall that John McGill, the late John McGill, promised him that he wouldn't dump all the lots out at one time and that he would build slowly, and we have. And we're at a stage now where we need to get a few more lots released, in this case 6. We have some contracts pending to build some new houses. The subdivision has been just about completed. You will soon see before you petitions to accept the roadways. There are significant bonds being held by the town of Grafton that we believe more than sufficient to make certain that the remaining work is done. And so we respectfully request that lots 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, and 67 be released from the covenants. There are 2, because there was an original covenant for the original subdivision approval, and then the subdivision was modified to basically redesign what I call the loop road to properly accommodate some wetlands issues that were over there. So there are 2 covenants, and the request is to release them from both. And I'm here to answer any questions. Appreciate the opportunity to make a presentation. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Chris, are they all set on all the requirements?
Yeah, so I did reach out to Graves Engineering to get a little bit more of an update. I obviously don't have the institutional knowledge and background on this project, so I reached out to him, and they have been moving ahead with the project as required, and we do have sufficient bond in place as well, as was represented.
All right. Any questions? Any motions?
I moved we vote to release the bonds, to
Release the lots.
Release the lots.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Justin?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Oh, Dave?
Aye.
It's okay.
Prabhu?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So motion carries.
Thank
See
the
you
board.
again. We'll see you
I
again. Go ahead.
You'll be seeing more of me again.
Yeah.
I hope. My associate has left the firm. He's taken a job in New Hampshire, so you'll be seeing me again for a while. And I did prepare the actual form of release, and I understand with COVID, it might take a few days to get it signed, but if Chris just gives me a heads up when it's signed, I'll send someone down to pick it up, and we'll get it recorded and then get the recorded copy back to you as we have in the past. And thank you. Hope you're all well. Stay well, and nice to see you. Thanks. Good night.
Good to see you, Joe. We'll look forward to
Night.
seeing you again.
Good to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the same room with us.
Yeah, those days will come pretty soon, I hope. So,
Well, there
But-
seems to be a difference of opinion about that.
but Bob, I'm trying to sneak out of the profession because I'm getting a little older. So,
Well, what's this older young guy?
yeah.
Huh?
So, Not as much here in a different color as when we started this, Robert. So thanks again. I know you got a busy agenda. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. All righty, minor modification, union tap and table.
So again, this is, sorry, Andy, you want to go?
Oh, no.
So this is again the outdoor seating, similar to what we heard for Post Office Pub. They're coming back this year for adding the tents, as well as the outdoor dining. They've also been to a development team meeting, just like Post Office Pub, and they're aware of the conditions that we typically do. In terms of consistency, I would just respectfully suggest that similarly that it be extended past this to December 1 rather than November 1 this year, and the normal conditions as noted.
Let's see, Sargon or whoever. What's your?
No, it's Sargon.
Hmm?
It's Sargon.
Okay. What are the plans for music outdoors or entertainment outdoors?
To have music outdoors when we are able to and allowed to by the state.
Yeah. Do you get do you have to get a different license or another license from the selectmen to do that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Does you have to have an entertainment license to do it indoors, right? And
Yep.
And does that cover the outdoor, or do you have to get another one?
I believe we have to, I mean, so as of this year, I believe the rules have changed because last year, as we all know, there were places that were doing it that didn't even have an indoor license, never mind an outdoor license. So the town never had anything called an outdoor entertainment license. So nobody had it. It wasn't just us. It wasn't nobody did. We had our indoor entertainment license. We have our indoor entertainment license this year. And our plan is to go outside if it requires an outdoor entertainment license, that will be news to us and we will apply for it. And hopefully we'll receive it like everyone else.
So any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just make a
Sure.
comment on, so for the outdoor licenses we have this year, we're kind of tightening up the process. It's more procedural than anything before the boards, but we do have online separate licenses for the outdoor and the temporary outdoor seating and the temporary outdoor entertainment. So those are separate. But Sargon, I think we talked and you're aware of those forms to be filled out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I recall, well, most of us are aware that some folks up around the pub, up around Reunion, felt that the music was too loud at some point, made a fuss about it.
Well, let's talk about that. If we're going to go there, Bob, I don't know how that applies to this, but if we're going to go there.
Let me explain how it applies. When there were noise complaints about the Post Office Pub, it ended up with the selectmen talking, looking at it to try to settle it. So I'm anticipating here. I think that people want to know because it's been an issue. Okay.
Well, it's been an issue to one particular neighbor. That's it. And every time it's been an issue, the police have come down and we've talked about it, and they've left. And there is no noise ordinance in this town. We follow the rules up till 9 p.m. We've stopped music till then. That's a reasonable time. And every single time that there's been a noise complaint, the police come down and they've left satisfied with how we dealt with it. And again, I don't think that applies to what we're doing here today. So I really take offense to you even bringing it up. But I think the Post Office Pub had music last year too. You didn't ask them about it. I don't know why you're talking about ours, but
he said he's not going to have any.
Well, we'll see. A lot of people say they don't do things in this town and then they do them, so.
Anybody else?
Hi, Bob, I had a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanna, there are two seating plans, one for COVID and one for non-COVID. Is there, what page 9 of 9 has the COVID plan, right? Very clearly say showing the 6 feet or 10 feet, whatever is the distance apart.
Mm-hmm.
Is the, maybe the question is more for Chris. So is the approval for the non-COVID seating, what are we, when we approve, what do we approve? I think we are still going to be in the COVID situation for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, so the capacity would need to be similar to the other permits where the indoor and outdoor capacity needs to remain what the original capacity is under the original permits and the building's capacity. I believe and sorry, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the plan would be obviously the COVID seating plan during the governor's emergency, but if restrictions are lifted as we continue through to December, they would be they're showing that they would potentially readjust to allow some of the outside dining.
That is correct.
Compare the outdoor seating in the two cases. How many?
I can pull up the plans if that helps.
Yeah, I sent all that stuff over.
Yep.
While you're looking that up, I'll say just personally that I'm not too concerned with how the seating is arranged as long as it falls within the allowable by the parking spaces for myself and allowable by the state rules regarding distancing.
Yeah, but okay, let's look at the other, the non-COVID one. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 19, 20, 21. Something like 31 tables.
Yeah.
So that's 124 seats.
Yep.
And that
It would be our new capacity.
Hmm?
That would be our capacity.
Mm.
And that's assuming that every single seat is taken up. That's all the four tops are all four tops.
Right.
But we have our capacity is 153 seats. Minus 10 parking spaces, call it 3 to a parking space. As minus 30 would be 123.
Right, but that means that you wouldn't have any or virtually anybody inside.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Bob, for us, the reason we do the outdoor is because the way we had it set up last year, people enjoy the ambiance, they enjoy the experience. But more importantly, because of COVID, the dining habits of the consumer has changed completely, drastically. I have people who I've still not been back to reunions since we took down the tents. And I have people who come in, they can't wait who come in every day, looking forward to the tent. As soon as the tent's there, the desire to sit inside is very minuscule. The only time we would move people inside is if we had bad weather. And at that point, like I said last year, I'll reiterate, like if I can fill up 124 seats and outside, I don't have the capacity inside, kitchen wise or whatever, to have more people in there. I mean, this is like one of those things that the capacity sets itself for our restaurant. It would just be too hectic. We couldn't handle it. So this is a perfect number for us. Ideally, if there was no COVID and I could have everyone outside, that's what I'd want to do. And this is just taking it to I don't want to say the extreme, but to the other side of the spectrum, showing 4 tables under the tent, all in rows, all next to each other. In a perfect world, I would have that all filled up. I don't ever foresee that happening.
So people really would prefer to eat outside.
Absolutely. I got people all week, Linda, asking to come, like, you got your tents up yet? You have your tents up yet? I haven't been back since the tents went down. This is a constant narrative that we get. Now, again, I would say that there's people who are slowly coming back, and I see more people out as people are getting vaccinated and whatnot. But this is a game changer for all of us. We've been, really struggling since we took down the tents back in November. December was a really bad month. January was a bad month, and February, March picked up, but nothing like we used to do in the summertime when the tents were there. So for us, this is the reason we want to do this is for business, is so we can stay here, so we can be a viable business in Grafton. This is as much as it's for the consumer and for safety. We need it to survive. It's to that point. And also too, anyway, I lost my train of thought, but it's very important for us in this context, for us to be a viable business. And this is why we come to you guys for this, and this is why we ask for it. And we're renting the tents. That's a huge expense for us. We wouldn't be spending that if we didn't feel like it would help us in the long run. I mean, trust me, if I never had to do this and I could stay open and it could be the old ways, I would, but we're in a new normal now. We're in the new way the world works. I mean, these masks, even if they tell us we don't have to wear them, people are going to be wearing them all the time, in my opinion.
The thing is that your case more so than the others, I think, comes to where you're having a big impact on the parking, and there's a big swing in capacity and so on. So
well, I mean, look, it's 30 spaces.
You know what? People. You know what, Sargon? When I'm speaking, why don't you wait until I finish speaking? Okay? Okay?
You're not complaining.
Let it be.
Are you done speaking?
Yes.
All I was saying is that there's 10 spaces that are eliminated, and it's 30 seats. And you talk about how ours is different. Ours is not any different than anybody else's. But for some reason, this town loves to target us. But it is what it is. So you can treat us differently if you'd like. But just the fact that you said that you are treating us differently speaks to my point about how everyone in this town is. So you do what you have to do, Bob.
When did we say we're treating you differently than
you just said that? Else? You said, well, our case is more different than everyone else's. You just said it.
It is, because you're putting 80% of your capacity outdoors.
Yeah.
And we need to understand what you're, and we need to
do that.
Would you mute him when I'm speaking, Chris? We need to understand what's happening so that we can write the decision so that it fully respects what's required. In your case is different than the other cases. And your case is also different because you were very controversial. And you have abutters who are unhappy with your special permit or had. And so we need to be aware of that and be sensitive to it. Special permit, among other things, requires that you be compatible with the properties around you. So I think it's not unreasonable for us to just ask you what you're doing. Okay? Okay? Now you better, you have to unmute him. There you go.
We are in a community business zone, may I remind you. And our business is that's what the zone is made for. So when we're talking about residents who live in a community business zoning who are complaining, or I just find that almost backwards. But again, I understand, Bob, I apologize. But literally, it's the same exact thing we did last year. That's all we're looking to do. The same exact thing you approved us for last year. I just want approval for it this year. That's it. No more, no less.
Last year, we didn't have that non-COVID part.
I know I added it just to show you guys because in case things do get lifted in July, this is what I want to do.
Well, you're
So you
asking
don't
us,
say why you have more seats.
you're
It's always
asking,
going to be under capacity. Excuse me. I'm sorry, but we're always going to be under capacity. You guys can check on us every day if you'd like, but we have 120 seats. I don't have any more chairs to put out there.
you're asking us to give you approval for that case now. Maybe we should do the
We're going.
COVID.
I mean, I just, whatever you want to do, I just want to do what I did last year.
Yeah.
If you want to take this thing out of it, take it out of it. You want me to have to come back? I don't understand why I would have to come back if the governor lifts all the regulations, but so be it, whatever you want.
If the governor lifts all the regulations,
I still have the
Then-
town
then
regulations to follow. I
that-
still have my capacity.
then you're back to where you were before all of this started, and you don't have any outdoor seating. You see, you're asking to change your business to be predominantly outdoor seating, COVID or not. Let him, turn him on.
So, Bob, you just approved the post office pub till December 1st, okay? And Dave even had a great suggestion. He said, well, let's not make the motion anything, talk about the governor's regulations because we don't know what that means. So all I was trying to say, I'm not saying moving forward next year or the year after or whatever. I'm saying if in July, by some miracle, all of this goes away, I just don't want to, if I add more tables out there because the 6-foot rule goes away, I want to be able to do that. That's all I'm trying to do. It has nothing to do with, December 1st is going to come. I'm going to have to take this away. If there's no COVID, I got to come back, like Chris said earlier in the meeting, and ask for a full modification of my site plan. And if you guys don't approve that, then I'm screwed. But today, what I'm asking you for is, can I put my tents outside? Can I put seating outside? If the governor gets rid of the 6-foot rule, I want to be able to put more tables out there. And it's all still within my capacity.
Does anybody else care whether we approve the whole thing, including the non-COVID part of the plan at this point?
I would suggest that our approval be for the outdoor seating, you know, in terms of the tents requested, the end date of December 1st, the caveat about not exceeding the available parking, and that the configuration of the seating under the tents be within whatever regulations are applicable at any given point in time. If the regulations change, then the seating can change accordingly. But I would tie it to the regulations that govern the seating configurations. And those may change.
Mhm.
The underlying permit doesn't have any outdoor seating, Dave. You want to modify for this year, you want to let them have any outdoor seating that the government will allow them to do.
Yeah, am I muted? No. As I understand it, this request is to, for this year, to allow outdoor seating under the tents in light of the current COVID. And we've already kind of said that, that we're comfortable letting outdoor seating run through December 1st, even if the COVID restrictions are reduced or eliminated. But I think sort of implicit is that, whatever seating is done here is going to have to be compliant with any applicable regulations.
Yeah. And I am comfortable with framing this in that way as well.
Okay, anything else? Anything else? Motion?
Motion to approve the request, approve the modification, or define that it is a minor modification as we did last year, approve it with the conditions that it is valid through December 1st of this year, that, and however we worded it in the, sort of keep the same wording again this year regarding the limit, based upon available parking, considering that the outdoor seating reduces the available parking. And we can say this, although it probably doesn't actually need to be said, that the seating configuration must be compliant with all applicable, health and related regulations.
Okay,
Second.
moved in second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, I'm hoping that 2E would go real quickly. Do we have anybody here for it?
Yeah, so this is Paul Chason. So this is the accessory apartment for 7 Elena. The applicant did recently receive approval, and they have submitted as they went through their development plans, they have made some minor adjustments that reduce the overall living space of and finished living space in the units, but does increase the footprint by 40 square feet. So I wanted to put this before the board as either determination of minor modification. If they find that this requires a full modification, they would come back for the April 12th meeting.
Yeah. There are two things. First thing is, I'm hoping that this is going to go real quickly and let them go so that we can then do our hearing rather than starting the hearing at 7:30. The other is that this was added today to the agenda. It's a little bit of a procedural concern for me with that. And I've exchanged messages with Chris about it. I think to be safe, since it was added to the agenda after the open meeting law limit of two business days, that we have to look at what the rules say. And the thing is that if this could not reasonably be anticipated, then I think the open meeting law allows us to add it to the agenda. And that's an open question in this particular case. It's not exactly like some of the things that happen with that. The other one is that unless maybe Dave or someone remembers the charter, has the charter provision changed? It should have, but I'm not sure that it did to catch up with the open meeting law. If it didn't, we need to take a vote to take this up as an emergency item under that provision. And it might be simplest to do that rather than worry about whether we need to or not. But you have to cite one of the reasons in the charter.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
That's usually the convenience of the town, by the way. Yes.
So I think this is a little bit separate from the emergency provisions allowing the board to take up. So I did review the open meeting law today in terms of amending the agenda. And I would note that this is because it's a request for determination of minor modification, it's a public meeting item and not a public hearing. I did double check this also with the town clerk, and they agree that it is not an issue with the open meeting law, but I'm happy to proceed as the board is comfortable.
The open meeting law applies to everything on our agenda, not just our hearings. And the thing is that there might be, for example, in this case, there might be a neighbor who's concerned. There may have been before. I think there may have been. So you want to be a little sensitive about how you do it. But let's just, since it won't hurt anything if we do it, maybe we should have a motion to, under the charter provision, which is also there as far as I know, to take this up as an emergency item for the, probably for the convenience of the town.
I move we take this up as an emergency item for the convenience of the town.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So we can take it up and let's try to do this quickly. So what's the change?
Can I speak? Can you hear me, Chris and the board?
I can.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here to represent my stepson and his wife who live at 7 Alana. And I'm sure you'll remember, we went through a few meetings where we submitted building plans for the accessory apartment. And it was approved by the board. And as we've continued with our design of the space, the living space, we've needed to do some minor modifications, and they are truly minor. It's mostly moving the footprint. You may remember or may not, but the rear wall of the footprint came straight, and it had a bump out that went out 2 feet by about 12 feet for a bay window. And then it came back in for the rest of the distance of the rear wall. And what we are doing with the rear wall is, instead of having that bump out, we're just going straight along that entire rear wall, which adds 40 square feet. And that's the straight wall is shown on this drawing, okay? And so it adds 40. In the process of our having submitted the original plans, we were mindful of the requirements of the limitations of the square footage, that it had to be, as I recall, it was less than 49%, and we were at 46%. As we've made this modification, I've had the architect, now that we're zeroing in on the exact design, I've had the architect recalculate, and they've calculated the square footage to be 7 square feet less than what was approved by the board, by your planning board. And in addition to that, we had planned to do an addition, a renovation to my son's basement area, which is unfinished area of the existing house. And since we didn't know exactly what we were going to do at that time, I estimated that we were going to do an amount that would have made his house 3,400 square feet about. And as it turns out, we're going to do more of that, making an exercise room and a rec room. And the finished square feet of his house will be increased such that the total square footage, finished square footage of the addition, rather than being, as originally designed, 46%, is now 42%. So in those cases, in both those kind of criteria, we're lower than what has been approved. And the change of that rear wall is really, I mean, it's very minimal. It's, like I said, 40 square feet, and it really does nothing to the footprint as it's seen from any of the abutters or anything like that. And it really has no adverse effect on that aspect. So in trying to exercise an abundance of caution and respect for the board, my son and I said, let's go back to the board and present this and make sure that they're okay with it. And so that's really what we did. And we're trying to move forward as quickly as we can because my wife and I, and we're getting awfully close to 80, are going to be without a home if we don't get going on this, and we can't file for the building permit until we get an approval. So that's really the long and the short of it. So we're requesting your consideration and and appreciate an aye vote on this.
Okay, we're gonna have to decide whether to take it up as a minor modification or whether we want it to be a full modification. Then we have to decide what to do about it. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? And does anybody not feel okay with taking it up as a minor modification?
This appears to me to be a minor modification. And as such, I will offer a motion that the board find that this is a minor modification and authorize the planner to issue the appropriate documentation of the board finding.
Second.
So we're seeing it as a minor modification and approving it. Approving
That's what my motion is intended to do.
Right. And I think there was a second from Justin.
There was.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave? Dave?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Prabhu?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. You're all set. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board members. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Chris, does 3A and 6A, do 3A and 6A interact at all?
Yes, they.
Should we do 3A or can we just plow on ahead with 6?
I would defer to the applicant if they want to hear them together or if they would like to present them individually. So this is the MIPA filing in terms of the MIPA filing and then the public hearing for 8 Pine Street.
Okay. Maybe we.
Jean Christie, the applicant's engineer, has her hand raised.
Right. I guess that as much as we need of 3A will show up during 6A, and then if there's more to talk about, we can go back to 3. So why don't we start with that? I think we need the
public
notice, new hearing.
Yes. Pursuant to sections 1.3.3 and 13.7 of the Town of Grafton zoning bylaw, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, commencing at 7:30 p.m. to consider an application for a plan approval for redevelopment of the former Grafton State Hospital into a mixed-use transit-oriented development, including residential and retail space on property located at 8 Pine Street and shown as Grafton Assessors Map 5, Lot 5. Said property is located in the low-density residential R40 and the North Grafton Transit Village Overlay NGTV OD zoning districts. The applicant is GSX ODG LLC and the owner is the Town of Grafton. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection at the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March stay-at-home advisory, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Please see www.grafton-ma.gov/planning board for more information.
Okay. Chris, do you want to start us off and get us going?
Yeah, so just as a little bit of background on this, I believe the board is aware, the 8 Pine Street that the town had submitted, this is part of the old, a portion of the old Grafton State Hospital that was submitted out to RFP. And GSX LLC was one of the applicants that was in the running and won the RFP bid. So this is the project that developed out of that winning bid, and we are kind of moving forward with that. So it's largely the same as was presented in the RFP, which the board reviewed. There are some minor adjustments as they've worked on actually citing the structures and getting into more of the engineering details. But I think that's kind of the brief update as to where we are today and the project coming before the board. I don't know, in terms of the applicants' representatives, we have John Grant, the principal of GSX LLC. I don't know if he wants to start, or Gene Christie.
I think Matt Walter wants to start, actually, Matt, right?
Yeah, that would be great. So thank you to the chairman, to the board, to staff. Appreciate your time this evening. Very excited to be here. This has been a year in the making. And as Chris kind of set the table, would be happy to explain a little bit of the timeline in case anyone may be unfamiliar, or would help to update kind of where we are in the process. And then we'll hand it over to Gene Christie, who is the site civil engineer from Ty and Bond, to run through some of the more engineer related infrastructure information. And then also turn it over to John Grant to discuss some of the architectural details. My name is Matt Welter, Vice President of Development for O'Connell Development Group. We are a real estate investment development and management firm based in Holyoke. We're one half of the joint venture with GSX. This will be our third project, whether through an affiliate or through the development arm of our company with GSX. To give a little bit of background, as Chris mentioned, we were awarded formally the project in June of last year. The project went under formal purchase and sale agreement in August. And since that time, we've been working through due diligence, doing quite a few tasks on the environmental investigation front. We believe this project is consistent with what was presented and offered in our RFP. It's 317 units, 4 stories, and a 5-story parking deck with an additional 11,500 square feet of service neighborhood retail. That's essentially the background. I'd like to turn it over then to Gene Christie to begin some of the infrastructure and site civil information.
Sure, thanks, Matt. For the record, my name is Gene Christie. I'm a senior engineer with Ty and Bond. We're located out in Westfield. And we've been involved with this project since after O'Connell and GSX won the RFP. So we've been working through some of the due diligence work alongside them. Thank you, Chris, for pulling up this landscape plan, because I think it's probably the best one to talk from. And I realized that when I was looking at the drawings that we don't have a proposed overall drawing to show you the whole site in one. So I apologize for that. So I hope this doesn't get too confusing as we try to flip back between the 2 pages of this landscape plans. So as a brief overview of the project, we are proposing a 4-story residential building. It's 317 residential units, comprised of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units. To support that building and that residential use, we are proposing a multi-story parking garage. As you can see, that is behind the building. So if you're looking at this plan on the screen, Pine Street's at the bottom of the page, and north is to the left. So we have to think about turning this, counterclockwise 90 degrees if we want to think about it, how it really looks outside today. So the parking garage is sited behind the building, so you don't see it from the street. That parking garage is still under development. We're working through how many number of spaces we can get in there. Right now, I think we're about 497 or so, which would meet the requirement for parking for the residential building. Also supporting the residential building, instead of having, potential tenants coming in, parking in the parking garage and getting lost in the building, we are proposing a small lot out in front. It's about 6 spaces. And that's primarily for just the leasing office. And then on the other part of the project, if you could flip to the next page, Chris, is our retail commercial component. So that's a 2-story development. There's a little bit of a lag there. So The two-story development, again, fronting on Pine Street. That has a different parking kind of plan. It will have an elevated parking deck, kind of servicing the second floor of the commercial building, and then a lower surface lot. So that'll be at grade, will not be part of the structure, and they're not interconnected. So that will require a separate entrance onto Pine Street. So you can see on the right-hand side of the page, there's an entrance to the lower level, the surface lot. That's again behind the commercial building. And then if we look up a little bit further to the left-hand side of the plan, we can see a driveway that is located across the street from Centennial, I believe. And that is how patrons will access the property primarily. That will give you access to that parking deck, that second level for the commercial building, as well as all of the access to the residential building. So your driveway will come in and around the residential building in a clockwise formation and then back into the parking garage. Now, Chris, could you go back one page?
Mm-hmm.
This would be great if I had the right plan for this, so my apologies. We did consider how a fire apparatus, other emergency vehicles would be getting around the site. They again would be entering from that main entrance point and then back behind the residential parking garage. Behind the building, kind of along the north-hand side of the building, we've proposed an 8-foot wide concrete walkway, but it's a 20-foot wide reinforced turf access way. So that's something that fire apparatus can drive across, can stage and set up their equipment on. We've used it successfully in a number of projects specifically for a fire department access, and it's taken well. And this look gives more of a walking path in terms of pedestrian circulation around the building, instead of having, looking out your back window and seeing a 20-foot wide paved driveway. At least you're seeing some grass and a walkway that looks less vehicular. So that's kind of what we have about circulation, what the general gist of the project is. There's a couple things I want to point out in terms of some challenges with the project. There's some existing utilities that run across the site. There's a water main that runs north-south throughout the entire parcel. If you could go to the existing overall, I think it's like the third sheet or so. There's also a sewer line that goes through the property, both of which we need to relocate and, work with the town, figure out how to get, some public infrastructure through the property, through easements, what have you, and then continue to provide water service to Job Corps. So we're working with DCAM to, figure out how to get that water to them, make sure that all of our services that are on the property today are, cut and capped appropriately and things like that. We do have a wetland system on the south side of the property. So on your page right, that has kind of defined where we are in terms of the retail component. It's, there's a 25-foot no disturb zone, then the 100-foot buffer is standard. And so that kind of tightened our little building envelope a little bit there. So what we've done is we have a couple of waivers to discuss tonight. The first being, and if we could flip back to a layout and materials plan for the probably sheet 8. The front setback in the overlay district is 50 feet. The required front setback in the underlying zoning district is 30 feet. So what we're proposing in to provide a commercial building that has enough space for convenience, commercial, retail type establishments. I don't think we have the program fully developed yet. A restaurant, a sit-down restaurant component. We wanted to be able to provide enough parking. And so to get that parking behind the building, we needed to push the building forward to the 30-foot setback line. So that is a waiver that we are willing to discuss tonight. The second waiver that we're looking for is retaining walls within the setback. Now, there's a couple places where this happens. There's one on the very north-hand side, right along the town line of Shrewsbury, where we have a retaining wall that exceeds 4 feet in height, so it's considered a structure, and it's in the side setback. Another location where we have it, if we can, is right in, along the access drive, kind of where we skirt between the wetlands and the buildings. We have another retaining wall here that's in the side setback. One thing I do want to point out now as we're looking at this plan. This plan shows that that we're proposing a retaining wall on the DCAM property. We're revising that so that we're not proposing that structure. We're keeping it on our own structure, and we're reworking that entrance drive a little bit. So you will see, as you know, the next submission of plans, things are a little bit different in that area. So those are two waivers we can discuss. Looking through my notes, I think I kind of
Can I interject?
layout.
Can I interject something, Gene?
Mhm.
So to give you guys a little more information. So the original plan allowed us to separate the site into a residential portion, which is to the north, and a retail portion to the south. And as a result, the residential portion has its own parking garage, has its own activities area, has its own clubhouse. And the retail area has its own parking, which really separates a problem zone. Usually when you have mixed use, you have the parking for the retail and with the residential, and you have a lot of conflicts between those parking lots. Our original project was pushed back another 20 feet because at that point in time, in the first drawings that we got from the city, the wetlands was depicted as being further back on the site, quite a bit further back on the site. And so what we've done is tried to not disturb these wetlands and the wetland buffer. And we're able to actually fit the parking lot and the required parking in behind this retail building by sliding it forward by about 20 feet. The other thing that we did was we disconnected the upper parking lot from the lower lot. The upper lot is specifically for the retail, which is access from the upper lot. The lower lot, while it still connects to retail, both with an elevator and with a stair tower, also services the MBTA line. So there'll be parking spaces there, overflow parking spaces for the MBTA. One of the issues that the MBTA has had is that they haven't had enough parking spaces, and as a result, they tend to not get as much ridership as they might have gotten otherwise. So we're actually providing quite a few additional spaces there. And the nighttime, those additional spaces will feed the retail, where they have restaurants or other uses upstairs, and allow there to be never a situation where you don't have enough parking here. So if that clarifies it for some of you, I'm hoping that that gives you an idea of why we have moved the building forward, and also why the layout is separated into residential on the left-hand side of this page and retail on the right. Go ahead, Jean. Sorry.
Just a couple more points to make. Stormwater management, we understand we've filed the stormwater management permit with the Conservation Commission to be concurrent with our notice of intent. And I also understand that I've spoken with Jeff Walsh at Graves Engineering about a peer review. Haven't seen comments yet, but I know that'll be forthcoming. So those are things that we're going to be working on as we go through this process. Another piece is going to be traffic. We may want to hold off on that one until later. I don't know, it's up to the board. We don't have a traffic report to present today, but we can at least discuss a study area, and if there's anything additional that the board would like to see from us as we prepare that document. So I think the only other couple things that we might want to talk about are the actual architectural drawings, and then even if the board wanted to talk more about landscape design, I'm going to leave that up to you folks. It would be prudent to talk about the architectural stuff. I think John's going to handle that one for me.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Jean, do you have some of those 3D models that we had earlier on to show?
I can get them. Please hold.
The project at Pine Street is kind of an interesting project. It gets quite a bit of density on this site while not looking dense, and also while not covering very much of the land area. Actually, the buildings themselves cover less than 46% of the site. And the reason that they do is because we were able to get all the parking in garages and essentially stack it. So instead of seeing these big parking lots all over the place, as you usually do with an apartment project, what we've done is we've stacked the parking behind the building. And one of the really neat features about that is that you actually park at the same level as your apartment. So if you're bringing your groceries back home, you park your car on the same level as your apartment, and you walk right into the same floor as your apartment, rather than having to get on an elevator and go up to your floor and then walk down the hallways. It's kind of a neat concept. And the other concept that's kind of neat is it's all covered. So in the wintertime, you wouldn't have any snow on your car to dig out. You actually have an enclosed covered area. This is really good for everybody, but mostly for seniors and people with disabilities. It's sort of excellent because they really have a very, very short path. Also, in the time of COVID, it shortcuts your walking distance through public spaces to your room. Hopefully, by the time this thing is done, that'll just be a thing of the past. But one of the things we looked at is the fact that this facility is really set up to be very, very good for separating people and bringing them together. So you have a clubhouse that brings people together. It's about 10,000 square feet, which is quite an interesting space. And you have the retail section, which is across the street, which is separated and can have a roof garden, which has outdoor dining above the building. So it's sort of all pieces of that. Jean, were you able to find a 3D model somewhere?
I have them. Chris is actually showing or controlling the drawings right now. If you want me to have control, I can share them.
Chris, can you let her have control so I can show some? It'll be a little bit easier for everybody to understand.
How do I do that? Share screen.
I have to change the
Got it.
permissions.
Okay.
Sorry.
One question I have is
So you should be able to share now.
make a ramp.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Do I have the right ones, John?
Yeah, so this 3D model really gives you a big picture of what we're doing, which I think is what Gene wanted to do originally, to show both sites at one time. As you can see, that parking garage in gray in the back is the center, sort of the heart of the building. And as you can see, the rest of the project is set around a number of courtyards. And it also has a historic look that mirrors the existing Grafton Hospital, including the brick and the stone and things like that, to create an homage to the existing building, since we've had to remove all of that and build a new building. One of the nice things about that whole thing is that you get these really nice green courtyards. If you look at the landscape plan, all the courtyards have activities going on in them. There's a yoga court, a dog park, there's grilling areas and all sorts of other things, and a walking path or a nature trail all the way around this project, as well as down in and behind the retail area as well. So it's really sort of a project that puts people together, but at the same time allows you to be looking at green space the whole time, and also have very, very short walking distances from your car to your apartment. The retail building, as you can see in this drawing, that was shown at 50 feet back. That was our original drawing. So it will be about 20 feet closer to the street, and it will still have a sidewalk, a continuous sidewalk around the front that will take you all the way up to the residential and the front of the retail, and will also take you to a crosswalk that lets you get over to the MBTA site, which is down at the bottom corner of this building. Can you give me a couple of other shots of the 3D model?
Well, it's what we had envisioned for this.
Hmm?
It's what we had envisioned for this thing, pretty much.
I don't have them. I think I picked the wrong drawing.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have the rendering from the front of the,
We have these.
those are just elevations of the retail building. I really look for more of the 3D so I can give a little more story. This is actually a colored elevation of the front of the building. It's from the drive between the retail and the residential building. And on your left-hand side, you have that entry with the 4 fireplace chimneys. That is the homage basically to the hospital, actually both these towers. If you go to the site right now, you'll see 2 buildings side by side that are connected with a courtyard. And this building essentially mirrors that look. In between those two buildings is a huge outdoor courtyard with a pool and outdoor fire pits and grilling areas and outdoor seating. It's going to be a very, very first-class project. One of the things that we found very interesting about this is that our neighbors at the university at Tufts are very, very interested in this project because they have no housing, both for their employees or for their students. And they look at this as being a place for their students and their employees to find a home very close to the farm, which also will reduce traffic in the area. So we reduce traffic both by being on the metro line, but also by providing housing very, very close by for Tufts students as well. As far as the finish on this building goes, again, it's all the brick and stone, and we use a slate look shingle. The roofs don't show it in this, but in our 3D models, if Gene had them up, we'd be able to show. But we are using solar on all the roofs. So the building will have solar panels on everything except for the parking garage, although we're looking into that eventuality as well. We are using high efficiency gas heating, and we are subscribing to the latest and greatest codes for energy efficiency in the state of Massachusetts, which makes us a really, really energy efficient building. We think this is going to be a great addition to Grafton. Provides the neighborhood not only with residential, but also retail for restaurants, hairdressers, Dock in a Box. We've had inquiries from lots and lots of different retailers, and this area has suffered for a long time. The technical park has suffered because there hasn't been a close by places to get sandwiches, lunch, or any type of services. And we're putting that right there along with enough parking spaces to make it very, very effective and attractive. That's really the basics of the overall architectural scheme. I think you'll be very, very happy with the final outcome, and I think it's something Grafton will be very proud of this final project. Oh, and there's also on the retail center, there is a rooftop outdoor dining area, and we're looking at a brew pub in that corner cylinder on the retail center. So a very large restaurant with a rooftop garden, which would be very nice in the summertime. And also possibly a coffee shop down at the base in the lower level of the retail as you come out of that parking garage and the way to the metro. So you can pick up snacks on the way out to the metro in the morning, and also something on the way home. That's the back corner. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
I see Justin, but one thing that I hope Chris can help us with. This is not a site plan or a special permit. This is a different approval. And I don't think any of us know the scope of what we are and are not looking at here and the process that it goes through.
So it is, so it's considered a plan approval under the North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District. So it streamlines the process a little bit. And what that does is the planning board grants or is consolidated in terms of giving the approval. It does procedurally run very similar to a site plan special permit. Some additional permissions as were noted in terms of waivers. So the board is granted some additional leeway in terms of waivers to waive bulk requirements and dimensional requirements that otherwise would have gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So there are some of those permissions that the overlay zoning gives, and so this is a plan approval under that. But in terms of peer review and a lot of the other procedural things, it's very similar to the site plan special permit.
Okay. Yeah. Now, peer review requires looking at the plans. We hear that the plans are still fluid to some degree. So I'm a little unclear about our course forward. Either we're going to approve something that's not the final plan, or we're going to have to mark time until we do have a plan. And will this be a plan we sign?
I'll double check. I do believe that the board affixes their signatures to these plans, but I will review what it says specifically in the regulations off the top of my head. I'm not positive, so.
Hopefully these are real quick before Justin, poor Justin. Talking about parking for the MBTA, how is that going to work? Is that going to be, their lot has, well, they collect money one way or another. Will there be something similar going on in this?
Yeah, this will be a monthly rented spaces. And you'll have a ticket and a gate. And during the hours, you'll come in, put your ticket in, the gate will open up and you'll go get your space.
Okay.
And then at nighttime, probably after 7 o'clock, the gate will go up. Anyone can park there. People have to be out by 5 a.m. So that people can take the spaces for the daytime transit.
Okay. And have you made any accommodation for the foot traffic across to the MBTA station in terms of, getting across Pine Street?
Yeah, we do have at the moment one crosswalk down just south of the proposed commercial building. We are considering if another crosswalk at the proposed driveway, the access road makes sense as well. That's something I think we need to work with your engineering department on to make sure everybody's happy about where those are located, and then consider them with our traffic study.
If there's going to be crosswalks, actually that crosswalk is quite a way. The current entrance, if I'm going to the train station, Chris, show me where I would walk in. Oh, way down there.
I think it's way down here, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's a sidewalk along the west side of Pine Street, and then we're also proposing a sidewalk on the east side of Pine Street to this location where you'd cross the street and then go along the existing route.
Okay, so there will be a sidewalk path all the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last question is, what, if any, affordable provision is there in this?
There's 25% of the units in the residential building are affordable. And that was part of the mandate in the original RFP. Also, in terms of parking for the residential building, there were 475 required spaces, and we have 493, I think, spaces that we provided, and quite a few handicap spaces. It's a very healthy parking mix all the way around for retail, for the MBTA, and for the residential.
So Chris, 25%. Tell us all.
Yep. So that's identified in our regulations, the 25%. That number is set. What that does is for the subsidized housing inventory, the full amount of units, both market rate and affordable, will count towards our subsidized housing inventory.
So all 316,
correct.
16. How many houses short are we on our affordable housing count right now? I'm just roughly.
I'd have to look, but this would, in terms of the 316 units, what we were short on, we actually lost the housing choice designation for community this year because we did not have the requisite growth to hit that program. This project will meet that growth requirement on its own.
Yeah, but I'm wondering what fraction of what we need to get to 10% does this represent?
I can try to pull up.
I'm just roughly.
I haven't reviewed it. I don't want to get a.
Is it like a quarter or a half or of just a little bit?
There's 75 units. Affordable.
Yeah, no, I'm worried about what we tell the state. We need to get up to a certain number, 10%.
So 10, correct. 10% is the amount that you can then apply. It's a automatic safe haven provision. I don't want to guess in a vacuum. I'd have to look at the numbers to.
Well, okay, am I right? We have, somewhere in the ballpark of 7,000 residences. So 10% of that, which is the requirement to be protected from 40B, is something like 700. And we have some of that. So this would be a pretty big bite into the rest of what we need to get, is what I'm trying to get people to understand.
Yes, I believe that this would get us I don't believe it puts us at 10%, but it does get us very close. But in terms of the Housing Choice Initiative, if we continue to pursue that program, that also has safe harbor provisions, which are similar. They just expire if you don't have the requisite growth year by year. So,
okay, Justin.
Sure. So, few minor things. Starting off with the easy one. Did I hear you right that the parking garage will not exceed height beyond the roof line of the apartment complex?
No, actually, it will exceed that by 1 floor. It'll be 5 stories. So it'll be a story higher, but you'll never see it from the street because the building is in front of it. And so the building and the roof of the building will block the view of the parking garage.
All right.
And we can
One
show
other
that in the 3D model too. I mean, you never ever see that garage.
Okay. Yeah. One other concern I was hearing about the fire path, so to speak, the paved path on the north side of the building is, it's hard to tell what the scale this is at, but I don't know if our town's ladder truck, our engine 1, which is our longest truck, can make those turns around the radius there. And it'll be good to at least know that as we move forward at some point here.
We did take, our drafting software does include a truck modeling simulation. We did look into what the largest fire apparatus is in town and was able to drive that through this configuration. That's something that we can provide as a separate figure to the board.
Yeah. I believe, I don't know 100% for sure, that our fire truck has a odd wheel spacing compared to typical fire engines.
Okay, we'll double check.
It also gets into slopes a little bit because it hangs way out, and I think the tail can scrape, or that kind of thing. So it's caused headaches for more than one person.
We could take a deeper look at that. Thank you.
And my other one, Chris, you don't have to bring it up, I don't think, but just a relatively minor thing. There's a pretty large room in the architecture plans in the southwest portion of the building, basically right near that rounded office area. Am I right that this is including a gym space? Is that what that is? It's on, you can see on the first page of the architecture.
A fitness center. Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that's front and center there, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I had top of my head right now.
Okay. Well, that's only right now for residents of the building.
Yep.
If you have a restaurant, you mentioned a restaurant, you need to be sure we understand the parking for that.
That's across that would be across the way with the retail parking. There's no retail in this building at all. All those public spaces there are only for residents.
Yeah.
Which includes a dog wash and all kinds of other stuff in there.
We were just talking to another restaurant about parking capacity a little while ago. You may have noticed.
No, I saw that. That was
yes. It's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other questions?
Bob, can I?
Yes.
So Mr. Grant and Ms. Christie, I'm personally very excited about this project. Till COVID hit us, this is my life. 6 years going into the parking lot and in the morning taking the first train out. So finally, we can see some life in that godforsaken place that the town has neglected forever. So happy about that. It comes with some concerns, as you would imagine. I'm not expecting a lot of traffic, but once you have the traffic study, we would see it. The first question I had is this going to be rental property or is it going to be for sale? How is this? What's the plan?
Matt? Matt, do you want to answer that?
It's an entirely rental, no for sale.
Okay. And in terms of parking lots on the commercial side, how many parking lots? Your commercial parking space, the square footage seems to be significantly higher. How many parking spots are you guys planning for?
So overall, we're projecting approximately 110 to 115 parking spaces.
Okay.
12,000 square feet of retail, or 11,000 square feet of retail.
Right.
And that's about 10 shops or so at the most, right? And 2 floors, 1,000 per square foot.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is that at nighttime, when those gates go up downstairs, is when the restaurants will be loaded. And so there'll be free parking in the base level of the building for people using the restaurants in the evening.
Sorry. So going back to, you said about 110 parking spots in the retail?
110, right.
And that includes the parking for the MBTA?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you probably did the analysis. The MBTA parking is about 386. And there is no spot if you go there after 7:30, 7:45. Not with this COVID situation, the pre-COVID situation. And that has been the significant concern. Ballpark, how many number of parking spots are you looking at for the MBTA parking?
So we haven't completely branded or tenanted the space, but we think approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 would be dedicated towards the commuter lot.
Okay. And the entrance is through that particular.
Yeah.
Correct. There's that second curb cut on the south side or further south on the site, going further down Pine Street.
Okay. And my last question was, you guys mentioned about crosswalks. Any other option beyond crosswalks? Crosswalks to me is going to be a big challenge there with the traffic. It's going to, if pedestrians are trying to cross the road over, it's only going to cause further restrictions and constraints. Are there any other options that has been considered or should be considered?
From a circulation and vehicle and pedestrian safety, we haven't yet gotten into our traffic study in that depth yet. I think that's something that we will look at, especially given, the traffic volumes on Pine Street, and considering for safety of pedestrians.
We can always look at putting a flashing light there and having that as a zebra. So people would have to stop for anyone in the crosswalk.
I think that would be a state approval, right? I was thinking more of an elevated walkover bridge or sort of thing. I don't know. Just a suggestion.
Things are very tough. You have the elevators on both sides, and those become crime scenes, unfortunately.
Right.
There becomes clearance issues as well. We would be willing to look at potential calming measures. We absolutely want to make sure that it's safe and that we promote the connectivity. So, working with your peer review engineer would be happy to discuss those type of options.
What would be the average length of the walk from a residential unit to where you can board the train on the platform?
It
involves going around and down too.
Yeah, so I think our farthest residential unit will probably be way in this northeast corner. You may walk internally to an outside space here and walk along internal walkways.
Walk through to the clubhouse, which is the closest.
You can walk through the clubhouse. I don't have that number off the top of my head.
It's less than half a mile. It's less than anywhere between quarter mile to a half a mile. I know this part very well.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, a little bit. Look, it looks like it's getting to where people are going to be a little uncomfortable with that long a walk sometimes, as to how much we really get that. But we'll have to see some more as we go along.
I had a question, and Chris, let me know if it's appropriate or not. But in terms of school bus, considering there's so many units, will that be on? Has that been considered? Like, will it be on Pine Street or inside the unit area?
Yeah, so the school buses actually, because this will remain a private property, the school buses will actually are not able to enter on that property. We can look at potentially if there's opportunity for a bus shelter on the roadway. That may be a way to provide that service, and also connect with MBTA or WRTA if that becomes expanded in the future.
Okay. And one other question, just for, I guess, thought provocation. The Sentinel Drive across the street, right? There is a approval for a cannabis production facility. Is that right? That's not retail, correct?
So there's one that is just manufacturing, and then next door there is a retail.
Okay. I was just wondering if there is any concern there in terms of proximity, or have there been situations where something similar has happened?
The distance for marijuana is specifically related to schools or places where children congregate. That may be a factor if we are putting in a bus shelter, especially if it's intended for school children. We may want to locate that, and I believe it would still be within or further than the 500 feet, but we can definitely look at citing that to make sure that it meets those requirements.
Well, that's all I had, and as Prabhu said, this looks really exciting.
More questions for tonight?
Just a couple of items. One, regarding the walking distance question, I did a very rough measurement on the GIS, and it looks like from the furthest point in the apartment complex to the platform of the T station is somewhere between a quarter and a third of a mile.
Did you include the zigzag down the hill? Or does the elevator take you down there on the outbound side?
I don't think the measurement is quite that precise.
I see. Okay.
I think
that strikes me as a really long chunk of walk down the side there.
Yes, one would, to get a better feel for that, one would want to go in a lot more detail about the particular path that one might take and the ups and downs and so on and so forth. But more generally, I will be interested to see the traffic study once that is complete. I do recall reading in the application materials that there was a question about the study area, and that the applicant would be interested in the board sort of giving their at least informal approval to the selection of a study area. So we probably want to talk about that tonight, at least to that extent. The rest of it, once you get the study area defined, you can then do the traffic counts, and the estimated measurements of added traffic and all that other good stuff. But that kind of starts with knowing what the study area is going to be.
Well, we define some rules about that. Intersections will be affected by more than a certain percentage. There aren't that many intersections to consider, are there?
I think we have 4 listed. I think it was, I can flip back to it because I have it open right here. Route 20, Centec and Pine Street at Green Street, Pine Street at Centennial, and then Route 30.
Yeah.
So that, we came up with those 4 probably back in December when we talked to DOT, Mass DOT, about a potential access permit, which we figured out we don't actually need from them, but they helped us to determine, these 4 intersections to look at. So that's what we're proposing at this time. I look forward to hearing what the board thinks.
Yeah, well, I hope that Chris and our people will make sure that we are not missing any intersections counted. I will say that the Route 30 intersection is going to attract interest. I can predict that sitting here and looking at one of my members who often is interested in that. So that was always a little strange what they did there. It's probably a lot better than what it was before they built the bridge or rebuilt the bridge to what it is now. But it's still, this will be enough traffic so that I think it's going to be of interest at that intersection. Okay, anybody else?
One last question, Bob.
Yes.
So Matt, Mr. Welter again. So are you guys also planning for some kind of shuttle service from the community to MBTA station and back?
No, we're not. Anecdotally, we've kind of realized or learned through our experience in both retail and multifamily and researching these type of projects located next to train stations, that's typically 10 minutes or less is kind of the threshold. And anything beyond that, it becomes more tenant and market demand driven than anything else. We're confident that we're probably looking at probably a 5 to 8 minute walk, even at the furthest point in the building. If it became something that was a tenant, more of a tenant demand, and became something that they're willing to pay a service, we would entertain it. We truthfully don't think it's going to be necessary here, just with our experience with transit-oriented development.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is, again, 6 years of being literally living in that area. While the snow clearance and shoveling and all those stuff is done regularly, it's not optimal. And that's within the MBTA spot area. Once you step out, I have not seen the sidewalks being cleared. I don't have experience in that space. But if that is something, if you're expecting folks to walk in after parking there or the residents to come in, that would be definitely something you guys need to figure out. Is the town going to clear that sidewalk or not? And it's a potential disaster out there.
That's a fair point. It'd be something that we would absolutely look into and make sure that we've got the proper snow management in place to make that a really safe and inviting pathway. So agreed. It'll be something we'll need to address.
Thank you. I'm good, Bob.
Okay. Anybody else? Procedurally, we usually have a little clearer idea of what's next than we do at this point. Maybe Chris can help us.
Yeah, so I mean, there's still, in terms of peer review, we're still waiting on comments. I know that the plans were sent over. So I think procedurally it is very much the same. I think this is a great kind of first crack at the plans, getting more familiar with the details. But I think the intent here is then to continue the meeting and follow up with some plan revisions, and obviously the peer review will have some comments that the applicant will, I'm sure, address. So.
What I'm thinking about is whether we're talking 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because 2 weeks and everything I heard, I suspect that 2 weeks may be rather short for what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think looking at the traffic piece, we do need a couple weeks to wrap that report up. And then I presume a peer reviewer will be, and I know it's not Graves, I'm not sure who it is. We'll need time to review that. So it may be a month, might be more appropriate. That way we can get peer review comments from traffic and hopefully get those squared away by then.
Are we lined up for peer review on the traffic, Chris?
We can definitely get that set up. I don't think we have. I'll have to look at how we've handled that in the past. I don't know if we have a typical consultant, but I'll review that.
Chris, do they have to go in front of Concom?
We
are.
believe, yes.
Yeah, we're set for the April 6th agenda.
Linda. Trigger was Concom.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
there is a question in the Q&A, but it's posted anonymously. I don't know if you want to recognize that as is.
oh, in the queue and private. Oh, private security. Can I ask, I guess, Chris, read it?
So the Q&A comment is private security and guard shack for retail and residential areas?
Question mark.
Question mark.
Well, I don't think we see this as a particularly high crime location. I mean, the profile for the apartment is fairly, younger, young professionals, even people with affordable units are young professionals. And as far as the retail goes, I don't know that we see it as being that dangerous of a place to be. We are going to put glass sidewalls in the stair towers and light up the parking garages at night so that there is, visual connection to everything. Other than that, I don't think I'd ever thought about having had any security on this thing. What do you think, Matt?
No, I don't. We don't think it's necessary.
Well, we should be seeing some comments. I didn't, on our, on the website, I didn't particularly see very many comments yet, but we want to see one from the chief, the police chief. The fire engines ought to be commented on by the fire department, although that's a challenge. Well, because they're short of people that are changing over.
I should comment that there's going to be a bunch of cameras and security on this whole project. You will not be able to get into that apartment complex without having a card key access or having someone let you in from their unit. So it's not going to be an easy place to get into for people to hide. And there will be cameras in the hallways as well as outside the building, keeping an eye on the outside of the building. So, and there'll probably be cameras in the garage.
So there'll be some sort of security.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There'll be security and there'll be controlled access.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we should hear from the chief. And what was the other one? There was another one that we need.
The fire department. Fire department.
Oh, did I say the fire? Well, okay. Anyway, there was something else I thought of. Okay. Anything else at this point? If not, how far out do you want to go? 2 weeks, 4 weeks? I'm not sure exactly what the calendar looks like, but it's usually.
I have our next 3 meeting dates up. If I'll read them in case the applicant wants to pick a date. April 12th, April 26th, and May 4th.
I think our preference would be the earliest of the 3.
Yeah.
Is that April 12th?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you make a request that we continue the hearing until then, we can do that.
And if they find they can't, they can always move.
Yeah, I understand. But, it's a pain for everybody. So 2 weeks, you're gonna make that request. You're making that request. And Dave is getting ready to make a motion.
Sorry.
Yes, I'll point out that our next meeting is 3 weeks from tonight. For what it's worth, on the assumption that the applicant will be making a written request to continue this hearing to April 12th. I will move that the board accept the applicant's written request to continue this hearing to Monday, April 12th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
I think we want to grant the request, but okay.
I'm usually good about remembering to grant the request rather than accept it. Not sure where my brain is tonight.
Listen, we got to keep this thing straight.
Keep me on my toes here.
Was there a second to the motion?
Second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Dave.
Aye.
Justin.
Aye.
Listen, Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
and I vote aye. We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And we're very excited about this.
So are we.
Or are we? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we can move on to,
Did we want to cover anything on the environmental notification form for this project?
oh, that's right. That was the thing. We said we'd pick up on that as a discussion item at this point. Is there anything more that we need at this point relative to 3A?
My only question, I guess, might be more for Chris, is should that be part of the exhibits on the actual project?
Yeah, we should duplicate it, and we'll put it as exhibits on the project page, but I believe they were provided in the meeting materials as well separately, but they should be duplicated and we'll upload them.
Okay.
Okay. We all set and we're done with 3A, right?
I think the application materials made reference to that, so it is at least implicitly already there. But in the table of contents for the application materials, I'm seeing, well, a reference to MEPA. I thought I saw a reference to the ENF itself as an appendix, but maybe not. In any case, it is part of the record and should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Although it doesn't, strictly speaking, the ENF is the other agency's responsibility, and we don't have any active responsibility with respect to it.
Okay. We done?
Next.
Mill development overlay, redevelopment overlay district.
Yep, so I have a kind of brief update on this. I've been working with CMRPC in terms of providing the updates that the board requested and looking at our DLTA hours and applications. I was encouraged by the TA and CMRPC to put in an application for DLTA for the mill redevelopment overlay. So I have been pulling those together, and that draft application has been provided in the meeting materials. So part of that, I do still need to get in touch with CMRPC to finalize the project cost of what that scope would entail. So there will be some adjustments to that draft application, but it did recommend that the CMRPC delegates be notified, and so I felt this was a good way to have that discussion if there's adjustments that you guys see that you'd like to have included in that DLTA application. But
no, and we voted that I'm the one that says okay, and I say okay to whatever I'm supposed to say okay to. Okay, nothing more on that, right?
Yep.
3C, subdivision rules and regulations update. Can't hear you, Dave.
Yeah, I know. My computer just told me I was muted when I started talking. Yeah, so we have basically a follow-up from our discussion of last time around. And if Chris would allow me to share my screen, we'll go through. Okay. All right, now, which of the 1,000,001 windows am I trying to share here? Oh, come on. I know it's there.
I'm in earshot.
There we go. So again, we've got, two follow-up discussion on two topics we've touched on in the last meeting or two. One is the intersection rounding radius, for which we're proposing to require the minimum 30-foot at the pavement edge rather than at the edge of right-of-way. And then we need to talk more about our intersection separation rules. So on the rounding radius, the highlighted text is what the suggested change is. Again, the minimum 30-foot at the edge of pavement and the constant distance between the edge of pavement and the edge of right-of-way, which has the result, perhaps not surprisingly, of reducing the radius at the edge of right-of-way. And I think we've kind of talked about why, because what we typically see are 30-foot radii at the edge of pavement anyway, and that's the visible boundary, and there's no, we couldn't come up with any good reason to require the same 30-foot at the edge of right-of-way. But the question was raised last time, and it's a good question. What impact does this change have on lot frontage and spacing of intersections? In other words, how much difference does it make in terms of the number of lots you might get along the road, or anything else that affects the size or the amount of development that we might do? And so I want to skip ahead to I think I put my slides in less than an ideal order, but I think this diagram shows what effect the reduced radius at the edge of right-of-way has. So this shows a 30-foot radius at the edge of pavement, and the black line is the 30-foot radius at the edge of right-of-way per the current regulations. The blue line shows where the radius of the edge of right-of-way would be if we maintained the constant distance between edge of pavement and edge of right-of-way. And you can see that what this does is it moves the edge of right-of-way slightly closer to the edge of pavement at the midpoint of the radius. Now, what impact does that have? I mean, first of all, measuring the frontage. I'm running the frontage along the, assuming it's at the edge of right-of-way here, and the frontage is measured actually to the midpoint of the rounding of the arc there, which this diagram kind of shows. And you can kind of see with a reduced radius at the blue line there, the amount of the rounding that's included in the frontage is less, slightly less, not a whole lot, but it is less. Now, thinking about the impact of that on the overall frontage question, I go back one, and this diagram shows the measured frontage compared with the side-to-side distance of these side lot lines. And it turns out if you take that measured frontage to the midpoint of the arc, flatten that out, you don't quite reach the sideline there. So there's what for lack of a better term, I'm calling a corner extension, which is in effect, that's additional frontage at a corner. But again, going back to this diagram, the frontage is still being measured along the edge of right-of-way. And the edge of the right-of-way isn't really moving very much, and it's not moving at all at the ends. It's moving only a little bit in the center of the arc. And figuring this out, what this really means is if we reduce the radius of the arc, we are reducing that little corner extension by some amount. In effect, we're slightly reducing the minimum side-to-side distance of a lot with a corner lot with a minimum frontage. And this table just shows what the difference is as we look at the current 30-foot right-of-way radius and compare that with the reduced radius that would end up being required with the 30-foot radius at the pavement edge. And bottom line is the difference doesn't work out to be a whole lot. If you look at what might happen between two side streets, between two corners, you end up with the intersections being spaced maybe 4 to 6 feet closer together. which is not like, it's not as much as I thought it would be when I first started looking at the geometry and trying to calculate it. So that's, you know, that's what I've found out, or what I've come up with for the difference that it makes to put the 30-foot radius at the edge of pavement rather than the edge of right-of-way. Before I go on to the next topic, well, we can stop here and talk about this.
Yeah, Dave, that's all interesting, but fairly, as you say, quite small differences. It's not answering the question that I had. I'm talking about right now for a minor subdivision with a minor road coming out. You have to have 110 feet of frontage on the road you're coming out on. With your rule, the way I see it, you're going to reduce that down into the 80s or 90s, whatever the difference between the 50 feet and the 30 or the 26 or the 22 is a reduction in the amount of frontage required to develop substantial backland. And is that your intention?
I don't see how it reduces it by that much, Bob. I'm having trouble picturing what you're saying.
Yeah, obviously, because I asked it 3 or 4 times.
I mean, the overall, the overall right-of-way width hasn't changed. It's still 50 feet.
Yeah.
Plus surroundings.
Yeah, when you draw the 30-foot radius tangent to the 50-foot width, you're out to 110 feet when you count both sides. Follow what I'm saying? You step, step back from the right of way 30 feet, set a center point, swing an arc out to the road. And that's the point that has to be part of what can be transferred to the town. You're going to change that because you're going to swing your 30-foot arc from a 22 to 30-foot width. And it's going to have a significant impact on.
It's not, Bob. It is not. Can you diagram for me the significant impact?
Exactly how do I do that, Dave, given this? I'm totally, I don't understand why you don't understand. Let's look at this drawing. Edge of right-of-way. Move up on the page, the edge of the right-of-way down towards the lower middle. No, in here. Where it says edge of right-of-way. Where it says edge of right-of-way there. Now, go 30 feet up from that line. Okay, and draw a line there. Okay, now go out to the boundary of the you're not showing a through road over there. This is the wrong, this doesn't address my question. I'm talking about
roads over here, Bob.
Well,
roads are over here.
Well, I don't see it drawn the way. I got a T, Dave. I got a T intersection, like up on Adams Road with the subdivision that's going in up on Adams Road. Okay. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right. You got a right angle intersection. You got to have a 30-foot radius and a 30-foot radius from the, right now, the right-of-way edge of this road you're building. The 50-foot width plus 30 feet for this radius plus 30 feet for that radius is 110 feet on Adams Road. If you start measuring the 30-foot radius from down at 20 some feet, then the width you need on Adams Road is less to build that.
Hmm,
By a
I'll have to
60
draw-
car.
I'll have- Yeah, let's continue this because I think we need to draw that
Change
out.
drawings, Dave. We'll exchange drawings offline. Okay? We need a blackboard, you and I.
That would help. It's hard to do this a little bit interactively, but yeah. So
Okay. Okay.
what I propose to do is to take this diagram that we have on the screen and expand that out to show the full T intersection.
Okay.
And we'll look at the measurements for that.
This is as far as we're going to get tonight. We'll
Yes.
we'll do a find some software so we can do a blackboard, or I'm a week and a half into the 2 weeks after the second shot, so I'm pretty close to when we could talk.
Yeah, I got my second.
Linda's
shot.
a day ahead of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I think-
Let's do that and drop my thing for now.
yeah, we'll look at the whole intersection, not just one corner of it.
I
I
can't,
think we may be able to clear it up.
I don't imagine any of that. I do not.
No, well, she's not an engineer that got A's in engineering drawing.
No, I've
Not the
I've
only
got-
thing he ever did get him in.
I think I have parts of that drawing already somewhere.
Yeah, well,
And yeah, and we'll look,
on a blackboard.
right, so, yeah.
We'll sneak into the municipal center and use a blackboard.
Yeah, we'll pick this up next time.
Yeah.
But I think I think I've got somewhat of a better understanding of what you're looking for. Yeah, maybe just you and I, Bob, we can exchange a couple things and sort of, not have it as a board discussion, but hopefully we'll have a conclusion that we can bring back to the board. So next topic.
Yes.
Intersection separation. I mean, the big thing that I took away from our discussion last time is the idea of on a major street requiring a greater intersection separation than what we've been talking about for a minor street. So this is a little bit of a review of what we've already thought about, and at least my first attempt at spelling out what I think the board is interested in for the major streets. So again, I've kind of come up with three principles or three things that we're looking at for the various types of intersection separation measurements. One is traffic conflicts between vehicles entering a street from two adjacent side streets. Another is the concern about having streets on three sides of a single lot. And then the third one, which is the point that we really hadn't addressed before, congestion at intersections on busy streets. So we'll kind of go through one by one here. This diagram just illustrates the potential traffic conflicts between vehicles entering from adjacent intersections, whether opposite side or same side. And the problem is that if you got vehicles coming onto a road from two different intersections, they have to be far enough apart so that the vehicles can see each other and avoid a conflict. And as I've previously noted, it's been generally accepted in the literature I've seen and the regulations I've seen that 125 to 150 feet is normally considered sufficient to avoid such conflicts. Of course, this isn't the only thing that we want to think about, but it's one thing. This sort of sets a minimum separation that I think we want to see in any case. There's the idea of streets on three sides of a lot. Again, sort of an illustration there. You probably don't want a lot developed for residential commercial use to have streets on three of its sides, particularly if its frontage is minimum or not much more. So you can kind of assume that if you got a house with streets on two sides, that house effectively has three front yards and no side yards. So the idea here is to separate intersection rights of way by at least twice of the minimum, at least double the minimum lot frontage. So you can, generally speaking, fit two minimum size lots in between streets. preferably more, but as a minimum, you want 2, I think. I think this is made slightly more complicated by an idea that there may be an absolute minimum you want to have intersections separated by. If you have a 100-foot frontage, 200 feet between streets might still look a little bit too close. So perhaps something more like 250 or 300 feet would be a minimum acceptable separation. And I'll also note that just because we're saying that we want enough space between streets for there to be 2 lots, doesn't mean that there has to be 2 lots. You might have a single lot with double the minimum frontage. It's probably not adversely impacted with streets on 3 sides. And there may be situations, talked about this a little bit last time, I think, so situations where a separation less than that prescribed minimum could be allowed if by waiver of the rule. And sort of the ideas that I've written down in the suggested regulation is basically that if there are constraints that make strict compliance simply not feasible, for example, existing development, existing property lines, some of the usual sort of things, topography, wetlands, or other unusual site conditions, the board could consider allowing a reduced separation. But I think, to me, it seems important that there must be no feasible alternative. That is, if there's any way you can design your subdivision with adequate separation, we would not be inclined to give you a waiver. It really has to be, this is the only thing you can do. And then we must find that there's no adverse impact on adjacent land or on traffic safety. And this brings me back to one requirement that I would view as a bare minimum is, the minimum opposite side offset, that 125 or 150 feet, whatever we write into the regs. Under any circumstances, it's unlikely that we could allow something less than that, because that gets you into traffic safety issues. So so far, this kind of is covering territory we've already covered a bit. And I had some illustrations of streets on 3 sides of a developed lot. There's a good one right there. Small lot, streets on 3 sides. Another illustration where streets on 3 sides could be considered okay. And again, the board did consider this okay back in 1996.
It was a special case.
Yes. This is. I mean, we would like to avoid. This is sort of the bare minimum that we could ever consider granting a waiver for. And again, it's not that we want to allow it as a matter of routine. And then the topic of congestion at intersections. Here we come to looking at what can happen on the busy streets. And we define a major street as 1,500 or more vehicles per day. The usual suspects in Grafton would be considered major streets. But the idea here is that higher traffic volume results in more congestion at the intersections along that street, with vehicles entering and leaving the street. And that's sort of inevitable. Anytime you have an intersection, if someone wants to turn off the street or turn into the street, other traffic may have to slow down. But the separation comes in with the idea that congestion is compounded when the intersections are closer together. If you've got intersections every 100 feet on a busy street and traffic's constantly, turning off the street or turning onto the street, it becomes a major hassle for the drivers on the major street. So the idea is to limit congestion by requiring intersections on major streets, regardless of which side the side street is on, to be separated by a suitable minimum distance. Suitable minimum distance here is pretty subjective. I looked for quite a while looking for any sort of metrics, any sort of objective metrics or well understood metrics that might apply here. And I found nothing that really directly addresses this. It just ends up being fairly subjective. To the extent that metrics may may be of interest here, you would look at a specific street with with known traffic flows on it, and you could do your traffic analysis and and estimate your level of service at each one of those intersections. But in terms of anything kind of generic, there's really nothing. The only thing I found that even begins to look like this is one study I found talked about a right turn overlap distance. And that had to do with traffic on the through street having to look not just at the next intersection for traffic turning into its lane, but also having to look, two intersections and look ahead 2 intersections. And the distance that study suggested for that was on the order of 200 to 300 feet.
Depends on the speed.
Yes, and it did depend. I think the 300 foot was at around a 40 or 45 mile an hour speed, and at a 30 mile an hour speed, it was more like 150 or 200 feet. But yeah, that is very speed dependent. So bottom line is the selection of a minimum distance here, it certainly seems to make sense that we want to do this, but the choice of a number for the minimum distance is rather subjective. And so I just looked around Grafton and found kind of 3 places where we could look at 3 different distances. And if we wanted to go out there and look and see if one of these looks better than another one when you're actually driving on the road. First one, which is several sequential intersections, all separated by 600 feet or roughly 600, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Milford Road here. You drive down there, and in a lot of those cases, you can't even really see the next intersection from the current one. So that's clearly, to me, seems like a pretty good distance. And of course, that's the distance that we currently have written into the regs. We can look over on Pleasant Street, and we see a series of intersections that are all separated by about 500 feet, which, again, when I drive that, it doesn't look to me, I don't see really to me, a noticeable difference between 500 and 600 feet. You go down to Worcester Street, of course, you can see Hitchings and Usher separated by just 300 feet. And I drive through there, and that 300 feet looks really too close to me. And then it's 550 feet to the next intersection to what's labeled Clark Road, but Clark Road doesn't actually exist, but it's the entrance to the Stop and Shop Plaza. And then another 350 feet beyond that is Snow Road. And that the 350 feet and the 300 feet, when I look at that, they look a little bit too close to me. So if I had to pick a number, it would probably be 500 or 600 feet. So these are examples, and if you've had a chance to drive through these, you can kind of get a feel for yourself of what you think is good. Getting to the end there, I'm ending up defining 3 intersection separation measurements, same side separation, measured between the edge of right-of-way, and that's to accommodate the lots. Opposite side offset and the intersection and separation on a major street, I'm suggesting that those both would be most appropriately measured between the roadway center lines. And with that in mind, the last slide here is just my current take on what the proposed rules might be. The numbers in there, the 150 feet, the 250 feet, the 500 feet, those we need to come to some agreement on, and I don't know that we really nailed that down yet. So that's what I have to say on that topic. And again, this is open for discussion. We ultimately want to decide what we do and do not want to do with these intersection separation rules.
That's 150 feet between center lines, which makes you only 100 feet between the points I was talking about, the ends of the roundings. More is better. So, that's what I keep saying. So, enough.
Yeah, the 150 feet between center lines is consistent with the general consensus about the separation between intersections on opposite sides of streets. In fact, the minimum separation between side streets, regardless of which side they're on, we're applying it specifically to opposite side because we've got a greater distance, a greater minimum between same side streets. But a lot of the regulations that I've seen set that at 125 feet. Again, then that's between center lines.
Okay, well, maybe it'd be nice if we could have a field trip with all of us, but if we can't do that, then I think maybe individual field trips might be good to look at actual examples.
Yep. I mean, aside from the specific numbers, which are not cast in stone well, nothing's cast in stone at this point, but aside from selecting what we can come to, what we can agree on are the most appropriate numbers, does everything else in here look like what you guys would like to see?
Uneasy.
Yeah, it all depends on the numbers, as far as I'm concerned. I particularly think about left turns in terms of congestion. My poster child, which isn't affected by this one, is Wheeler Road when you're driving towards Worcester on Worcester Street. When you get a left turn there at rush hour, it's not good. And that's an example of how intersections, if you add those intersections every 300 feet, it'll take you a long time to get to Worcester. Oh, Linda says that might not be so bad. I mean, we got to be for local business, right?
Yep. And when you consider the fact that we're primarily looking at design of new subdivisions, there probably aren't very many opportunities to connect a new subdivision onto an existing major street. You're not likely to be designing a major street inside of a subdivision. But nevertheless, there probably are at least the occasional place where you're connecting a subdivision onto a major street, and you need to worry about this traffic on the major street.
Oh. Anybody else on this?
So this is great.
Yes.
Sorry, just quickly, great analysis and examples. Your three examples, I know all three areas. Actually, I live right off Milford Road, and I think the distances there are just great. I've never faced any issues turning left or right or seen anybody else. Wheeler Road, I think, is an outlier in my opinion. I don't think in Grafton, hopefully, there are many areas where you get stuck taking that left turn. But thanks for doing this. It's very informative.
Yeah, in terms of traffic volume, Worcester Street, and particularly in that area, is much more heavily traveled than, say, Pleasant Street or Milford Road. Milford Road and Pleasant Street both have enough traffic to qualify as major streets, but they're nothing like Worcester Street. Even 140 Upton Street, heading south out of Grafton Center, is nowhere near as busy as Worcester Street through that section of town. That's probably the busiest street in the entire town. But yeah, I think in the end we need to decide what the right numbers are here to plug in here. I'm very comfortable with 150 feet for the opposite side offset, because that's consistent with everything I've read about the minimum separation between intersections. The same side separation minimum of 250 feet as it's currently written, that's a little bit more subjective, and it's one. And then the major street separation, 500, 600 feet. I don't think I would care to go less than 500 feet personally. I could go with either 500 or 600. And like I said before, when I drive through there, I couldn't tell the difference between 500 and 600 feet. But 600 is our current standard, for whatever that's worth.
Okay.
Yeah. All I was gonna say is that very good work. Happy for it. I have no concerns with what's on the slide. I would be interested if Chris had concerns, but I'm going to take his silence as he doesn't have any. And even 250 feels slightly low for me. Like I would be more comfortable with 300 feet for the same side separation. But that's just.
And I will say that if I'm remembering correctly, of the sources I've read, 300 feet is a frequent recommendation for that particular measure.
In the interest of a path forward, and since we only have 30 minutes left, I'd suggest, Dave, maybe you want to identify actual situations on the ground, illustrate what you're recommending, if you can find them, and give us nominations. Basically, let's make the rule like this. We can go out there and we can look at this, either together or by ourselves, depending on governor.
I can give you some examples of opposite side offsets that are way less than 150 feet. Those aren't hard to find. Just look at Worcester Street, Snow Road, and what's the one? It's almost directly across from Snow Road, but not quite. And then down on Pleasant Street, you've got Grist Mill Road and Power Line, I think it is. They're only maybe 50 feet apart. Those are examples of things that I don't think we want. And the only thing I think we're really missing at this point, I mean, I can probably find some opposite side offsets that are around 150 feet. That the example I showed on Essex Circle, that's 150 feet between Main Street and Essex Circle. It's not, well, depending on which direction you look on Main Street, you can see it as an opposite side, but that's probably as one good illustration that I know of what I think of as the minimum distance between intersections, regardless of which side of the street.
I think Main Street, though, is a main street, is a major road.
Main Street would be a major road, but the intersection the intersection that's 150 feet away from that is on a minor road. So that's kind of the thing to look at there, is not thinking Main Street so much as. And another example, if you look in Violet, is it Violet Lane or Violet Circle? That's a condo development. That some of those intersections are quite close together. Yeah, I could come up. I think I could identify a few intersections that are perhaps more representative of what we're talking about. Much as I did for the major street separation.
Is the Violet Street a private way?
I believe it is.
And so they don't go by the same rules.
Right, and plus that was probably, pretty sure that was a 40B as well, so they don't have to go by all the rules anyway. And it's clear they didn't go by the 600-foot rule.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested in the examples that are actually the kinds of roads and the distances.
Yep.
So we're just saying somehow visualizing stuff is not that easy for everyone.
Yes, and things don't necessarily look in the field like they do on paper.
Yeah.
As I'm sure most of us well know.
Little black lines on the field. And you feel more like you're driving when you're driving. Okay.
All right. So between now and next meeting, Bob, you and I need to clear up what we're talking about on the roundings.
Mm-hmm.
And I will offer some examples of the 150 foot and the 250 feet that are examples that correspond roughly to what I think the minimum acceptable thing would be. And maybe several examples just to so folks can drive around and kind of eyeball it for yourselves. Because ultimately we have to nail down the numbers.
I think I need to know what software you use to draw those neat drawings with the curves and the intersections. Maybe I can.
It's called PowerPoint.
Really? Can you do that?
The drawings and these were all made with PowerPoint. I've also got another application, OmniGrapho, which is a diagramming software, but it really doesn't offer any advantages over PowerPoint for doing these kind of drawings.
Okay.
I don't have any cool drafting software though.
Okay. I'm thinking of SketchUp, but it's not good for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I've played around with SketchUp some, and doesn't seem to me like something that would work well for these kind of drawings.
Yeah, SketchUp really wants to be a three-dimensional thing.
Yeah,
really doesn't like making two-dimensional drawings with dimension lines and stuff.
No,
if you beat on it hard enough, but I think your drawings are much more readable. So we'll get together on that. Is there anything else we need to do on this? If not, bills. No bills. Minutes of previous meetings. No minutes of previous meetings. Staff report.
Thank you. I do have a quick couple of things. I'll be conscious of time. But in terms of long range planning, we are seeing a lot of moving forward, things that I wanted to make the board aware of. So the local rapid recovery plan, we have the plan kickoff scheduled for that between staff and the consultant tomorrow. We've had some communication via email, but it'll be nice to see them in person and get a better feel for nailing down some details of the scope of that project moving forward. So very excited for that kickoff meeting. We also will be taking on in the planning office the update of the hazard mitigation plan. So that grant was funded through the state, and we are working to, we just received the notice to proceed, and we'll be working on developing the strategy for tackling the hazard mitigation plan update. I expect that'll be a bit of a heavy lift on the office, but we're also excited to be taking that on. In terms of development team, which is our Thursday meetings, we've actually booked out several of those meetings Thursdays, and there's definitely conceptual level plans that are coming to us for the most part, but we've been seeing a lot of interest in developing conceptual projects in Grafton, a lot of either state property or town-owned property, as well as private property that they're looking at various projects. I won't get into the weeds on that tonight, but that's something I'm happy to report that we are looking at a lot of exciting and interesting and unique projects, at least at the conceptual level. And then finally, the open space and resource recreation plan, was before the Board of Selectmen just this last meeting. At that meeting, it was looking for final endorsements before being sent to the state. There were some concerns raised by members of the select board, and they wanted to have some kind of update of the process that fed into the development of that plan. So we're kind of circling back, and we'll be providing a more updated presentation of the route in which we got there and developed the plan. Part of the concern was the relationship of the open space and recreation plan objectives and how those meshed with other long-range plans in town, such as the housing production plan and other various projects. It was noted that, obviously, and one of the comments that I made was that the master plan update, I think, would be really critical in bringing those plans into a more cohesive objectives and more cohesive kind of environment. But that was some of the discussion. So that just gives an update on where we are in the office. So.
Okay. Anything for Chris? If not, correspondence. There's one interesting letter in there. I hope that's getting taken care of. Anybody else with correspondence? If not,
Caught my eye.
Hmm?
Nothing in correspondence caught my eye other than the first item.
Yeah, I'm not sure which building that is, by the way, but I'm not sure how important that is. Just curious, kind of odd. Well, it's kind of odd. Hopefully it'll settle out. All right. Reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC. Prabhu ought to have really fresh input.
Nothing different from since the last meeting. Yeah, the progress is going on very well. Today we had a meeting, but it was more about the furniture and the interiors. So nothing significant since then.
Grafton Access has put up a short slideshow. I think Bob walked around the project. Pretty substantial number of pictures, which gives you at least a little sense of what it looks like right now. Looks like new construction, white walls, not much going on, but you get a little more sense of the reality of it.
It has come out beautifully. It's completely different. It looks great.
I want to know what the treatment at the new front door will be. There's like steel columns, and there's got to be something going to be done with that. I got to see that, because otherwise it's getting pretty close over there.
June.
Okay. Does anybody else have any reports?
I would have from the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee, but Chris said everything that I could have possibly have said.
Okay. I'm getting to act again as a county commissioner in about a week. When they did away with the county and the commissioners who, among other things, were in charge of county roads, the county owns, commissioners own the roads. Now there isn't any county. So this deal is that the law that did that makes CMRPC 4/5 of a county commissioner's forum to we're being asked to give up a drainage easement on 140 heading up towards Route 9, Memorial Drive. So this is the third time I've been a county commissioner.
We have county roads, but no county commissioners, but no county roads, but no counties.
Yes, yeah, well, and hence no commissioners per se. So we get to be commissioners, more or less. The exact title is a little fuzzy. Anybody else have anything else? Is there anything else that may lawfully come before us?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That's not debatable. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carries.